Are we seriously talking about Tylenol and autism?
Still, find out today on Medical History Mysteries.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Medical History Mysteries. I've heard so much back and forth between the relationship of Tylenol and autism. I feel like it's a scientific discussion. It's become a political discussion. I think it's become what kind of mom you are discussion. Give us the scoop.
I will tell you, Pam, I wish I had the scoop to give you on the use of acetaminophen or paracetamol, as it's known throughout the world outside the US, in pregnancy. And the reason I bring the world into this discussion is because the information that was released in the US really did set off a firestorm throughout the world because let's face it, paracetamol, known outside the US, and acetaminophen, as is known in the US, has been used in pregnancy for decades. So is this something new? Should we have known about this all along? Is the data sound? We've got some, in my opinion, the reason why I say this, and I say this not in any political sense, I don't know who to believe because I've got organizations on both sides of this argument that I respect that are that have chose different sides of this argument. And so every time something new comes out, I'm almost at a loss as should I mention this to my audiences or not, because I don't want to be the one giving out wrong or misinformation. So it started obviously last year. And there was the thought that the FDA sent out memos to this effect that the use of acetaminophen during pregnancy, prenatal exposure to acetaminophen, could result in the regression to autism. But causation wasn't proven. Okay, there was no definitive link. Okay, but it was a concern. And so what that bubbled into ultimately was this, as you said very well, political as well as medical discussion. And of course, the United States doesn't live on an island, right? So the world jumps in, right, and gives their opinion. And again, politics being what they are, everybody had a side, whether or not it was based on their true opinion or whether or not they believed they liked a certain person. That's how it broke down. So what's the truth? What do we know so far? We know that there have been some cases of autism that we can perhaps link to the prenatal exposure to acetaminophen. But I can say that as we're recording this today in February 2026, right? It could change by tomorrow. The latest volley in this back and forth has been from the Lancet. The Lancet is a well-established, well-respected journal throughout the world. When the Lancet publishes something, people listen, okay? Like E.F. Hutton, if you're my age, right? So what did the Lancet say? January of 26, really almost a month ago. They said what? Prenatal paracetamol exposure doesn't seem to cause any problems with child or children's neurodevelopment. They did a systematic review and a meta-analysis. And from what they say in there, and you can look it up, go, Google the Lancet, you'll find it. They say that they've done the study, they did a lot of research, and they can't find causation. They can't find a link. And so in their opinion, there is no risk. But a few days later, there was some scuttle about whether or not the Lancet's modality, the way they looked at the data and the data that they looked at may have been somewhat biased. But the news cycle is all about what you get exposed to and what you don't, what they decide to tell you and don't tell you. And I'm not saying that being political. I'm just saying, if you don't catch the news that night, you might miss it. If you don't read the right article online, you might miss it. And so all I can say right now is the general feeling amongst clinicians is, as always with pharmacology, benefit versus risk. So does the benefit of using acetaminophen in a woman who's pregnant outweigh the potential risk? And so what I've heard, and this is just what I've heard, okay, is that some clinicians say, look, mom's got a fever. She's, 8 or 9 months pregnant. It's 101, 100 point something, 101. Probably not. Let's see what happens. Treat it, more symptomatically. Fever 103, acetaminophen. So that's the risk versus benefit. Okay. Again, I don't even know what's right and what's wrong. And I think, unfortunately for us in dentistry, since we're so reliant on acetaminophen as part of the ibuprofen acetaminophen combination for treating dental pain, that we have a vested interest in this. But I will tell you, as many people who've heard me speak have heard me say, they have asked me what is the safest trimester to use ibuprofen in pregnancy, my answer has always been the same, the fourth one. In other words, if you can't wait until after the pregnancy, after the baby's been born, you've really got hard choices to make because any drug that we use during pregnancy can carry that potential risk of crossing the placenta. And I feel it's the same way with acetaminophen. But since acetaminophen is used so much more because ibuprofen is not used so much in pregnancy, this becomes the issue. And I think ultimately, if it's mild aches, pains, and headache, maybe we don't treat. But if it's fever or something that can be more potentially dangerous to the fetus, then we do treat.
Okay, so if somebody's saying, all right, I'm just going to avoid it because there's too much back and forth. I want to be Switzerland. I want nothing to do with any of this. What do you do?
So how do you treat pain? How do you treat fever? How do you, if you don't have anything to use, if you don't have ibuprofen, obviously, you don't have acetaminophen, obviously. So what is it about acetaminophen that can possibly cause the autism? And so we all know that when you take a very large dose of acetaminophen, there's three ways that acetaminophen is metabolized in our liver, right? There's glucuronidation, sulfation, and oxidation. Oxidation, which is what we want to try to avoid, has been long known to produce a metabolite that is liver toxic. So as long as you don't take too much, you don't produce a liver toxic metabolite, you're good. But we didn't realize that exposure to that metabolite, while we knew caused liver toxicity, might be the explanation for why children may regress to autism after birth. Okay, so then just don't take too much and we'll be okay. But mom's liver might be compromised. Mom might be taking other drugs that increase the risk of that oxidative metabolite. And so, as I've said 1,000 times, I know you've heard me say it at least 1,000 times, you know, we treat patients every day in dentistry with drugs that are metabolized in their livers, cleared through their kidneys. We know nothing about their liver and kidney function. And so I don't know from one person to another, since there's such a high degree of variability, if one pregnant woman can take the same dose of acetaminophen and be just fine, and another woman take the same dose and not be fine, meaning that that second person might develop that metabolite from oxidation. And so I think now, to answer your question, I think now it's more like symptomatic relief, cool bath, cool compresses on the pressure points, and avoid anything at this point. Some people have decided aspirin's a good idea. I do not think that's a good idea, especially in pregnancy. Definitely not. And some people have decided to go with more what they call home remedies. Again, I don't know the long-term effects of using a home remedy on a child who's developing as a fetus. So I'm going to say the thing I hate to say, the three words I hate to say, which is I don't know. I think at this point you just don't treat, and mom has to tough it out. Mild aches and pains, mild fever. But I do think that at some point you've got to draw the line as a clinician and say, okay, this is where I think the benefit outweighs the risk, and we're going to do it. It's going to be a couple of years before we find out, and I don't know what the long-term litigation is going to be like as years go by in the near future.
So, three words you don't like is I don't know. One word that I absolutely love is collaboration. So, this is a great opportunity for us as dental professionals to collaborate with our patient's physician or send our patient back to their physician to make a suggestion, just so we make sure that we're keeping them super duper healthy throughout the process of their pregnancy, breastfeeding, and thereafter. So, a lot of good information this week.
People flame me online for this, Pam. You've read the comments where people say, Viola, consults are not absolutions of guilt, and it's so hard getting consults. I don't want to get consults. I hate consults. And I, like you say, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't reach out for a consult, especially with a pregnant woman, because it's two lives you're dealing with, not one. And if the obstetrician really is that negligent that you can't get a simple consult, a simple 15-minute conversation, I think that's when you bring the patient in and say, look, I reached out to your doc. I want to know what the right thing to do is. I need to get you involved. What's your opinion? And maybe you can reach out to your doc and say, hey, my hygienist wants to have a conversation with you about this. And I think that's the right way to go. I am 100% in agreement with you. Consults may not be absolutions of guilt, but consults ultimately mean one thing: to state boards of dentistry, to juries in the future, whatever. I'm no lawyer, I'm not giving legal advice here. It shows you had the patient's best interest at heart. And in this case, two patients' best interest at heart.
Well, sounds like this medical history mystery. We need to stand by and get more information.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, you heard it here. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for
Thanks,
joining
man.
us.
Take care.